Welcome to Mind, Body, Health, and Politics. I'm your host, Dr. Richard Lewis Miller. The mission of Mind, Body, Health, and Politics is to enhance your physical and emotional well-being and encourage community. I say encourage community because I believe that human beings are basically tribal animals, and we live the healthiest, we sustain each other the best, and we live the fullest lives when we live in community. And now, at this particular time in history, it's more important than ever that we reach out and make connections with one another and live in community, because the world is suffering more than ever from alienation and isolation and a sense of disconnection, which has been exacerbated by the recent COVID pandemic. So reach out, everybody. Today, I reached out to Eric Maisel. Dr. Maisel is a luminary in my profession. He has written how many books, Eric? 17, 23,
More
40?
than 60.
More than 60 books. He is world-renowned, and he's with us today. What a privilege. Eric, welcome to Mind, Body, Health, and Politics.
Hi, Richard. It's great to see you.
Eric, you're approaching 80 years old. You've written over 60 books. You've been examining the human condition for your entire adult life. At this particular time of your life, what stands out on your radar screen that you would like to share with our viewers and our listeners?
Well, I'm right with you with respect to the need for community. So one of the things on my radar is a new organization that some pals and I are forming called the International Association of Creative and Performing Artists. That is, we'd like to create a worldwide home for creatives, which to our understanding hasn't been tried before. We want to cross borders, cross ethnic divides, cross religious divides. The idea popped into my head watching Daniel Birnbaum, the conductor, conduct his West-East Divan Orchestra, which he created with a political idea in mind, that is to get Israeli and Arab musicians in the same room, playing in the same orchestra, without an agenda except having them talk to each other and play together. It seemed like a beautiful, simple idea. So that's one of the things on my radar, is trying to create this worldwide community for creative and performing artists. As you know, they're my people. I've been working as a creativity coach for 35, 40 years now. They face special challenges, special areas of alienation, special areas of depression and anxiety. So I want to serve them in some new ways, maybe give them some basic resources, and have them get to know each other and have a place for arts organizations to get known, because there are tons of organizations that don't know each other, don't communicate with each other. So that's one thing on my radar.
Before you go on to the
Sure.
next thing,
Yep.
we just handed you a magic wand.
Yep. Thank you.
And you can make this new organization any way you want. Take out that wand and paint us a picture of the organization, Eric. What does it look like?
Would have a couple of different major aims. One would be to help creative and performing artists understand, if that's the right word, understand the challenges of their chosen, not just profession, but identity. What's come with identifying as a musician or a writer or a visual artist. What's happened when they identified that way. Paint that picture. Give them resources for dealing with the things that we know they're facing, like special kinds of anxieties, existential depression, addiction, higher levels than the general population in all of those avenues. So point them to resources. I guess the main thing would be having them feel like they're in it together. We know that loneliness is an epidemic, but for creative performing artists, in part because rivalries interfere, because the pie is so small. If you have something, I'm upset with you, so it's hard for me to be your friend. If you get that gallery show or you get that publishing deal, I would love to feel on your side, but I'm actually seeing you as a rival, unfortunately. So we'd like to cut through some of that stuff and have these creative performing artists actually enjoy each other's company, which we're not clear that'll be easy because of rivalries and differences and all of that. I don't know if I've waved the magic wand exactly, but I would like there to be a little more hope for them as the landscape changes, as AI does its thing, as commissions for graphic artists reduce, or as this lowers, or this number lowers, or this happens. Things are getting harder for them all the time, so they work harder, work more and more hours, have more and more multiple gigs, trying to keep their universe afloat. There's nothing we can do financially to help them. We can't change their lives that way, but we would like to help them existentially, remind them that what they're doing matters. I think civilization is still a useful word, a beautiful word. A lot of people are saying it's a post-civilization moment. We should get rid of the word. I'm not there. I think civilization represents the best of what we have to offer. And I want to remind our creative and performing artists that they're serving a function, performing a service. The world would be much less, even less of a beautiful place without music and art and books and dance and what creative and performing artists do for us. So I'm not sure if that's a on-point answer, but we want them. Let me say it slightly differently. You know that in classical psychotherapy, one of the goals was insight. We wanted clients to gain new insights. In existential therapy, the goal was slightly different, and that was to invite people to hope again, to have renewed hope. And I think that's one of the aims of this organization is to provide creative and performing artists with renewed hope, not saccharine or Pollyannish hope that they can financially make it or that it's going to be easy, not that kind of hope, but the kind of hope, I'm off on a tangent, but the kind of hope that Solzhenitsyn, the Soviet novelist, spoke to in his Nobel Prize winning speech about the phrase truth, beauty, and goodness still having meaning. That kind of hope, that the underlying desire to provide beautiful things, truthful things, good things in the world still matters. Even though we can deconstruct those words, it's easy to blow up the word truth and beauty and goodness. It's easy to blow them up. I want to reconstruct some energy around those words and have them have meaning again.
Are the arts, the performing arts, under attack in this country and around the world at this particular time in history?
They always are.
They always are.
They always are. The same way that we can name groups, Jews, gypsies, homosexuals. We can name groups that are always under attack for it. We could name the reasons, but there are scapegoat groups, and for whatever reason, there's that trickster characteristic in too many people that wants the world to suffer. I don't know why. I don't know why there is that streak of cruelty in so many people. But one of the ways they want the world to suffer is to have it be a darker, less beautiful place. And so, of course, they'll defund PBS or defund this, or they want the things that we take to be wonderful and useful and valuable. They want us to not have them. It feels petty, like some 5-year-old is taking his ball and leaving the playground. It has that feeling about it, but they're always under attack. The arts are always under attack.
Yes. Eric, I think the public views artists as being like a different category of human being, that they have different sensitivities than the rest of us. Do they have different sensitivities?
I could take either side of the debate. I'll take the side of I think that there is a creative personality. I think it's made up of, at one point I looked it up in the literature, maybe 75 different traits. It's a lot of traits having to do with passion and nonconformity and a certain kind of stubbornness. And I think there are traits to that personality, imagination, what have you. I do think some infants pop out of the womb already somebody. Psychology, psychiatry has no way to think about what I call original personality. That is our blueprint that's already baked into us as we pop out of the womb. But I think that blueprint matters. And some people pop out of the womb and already are looking around going, who are these people who call themselves my parents? And what are they doing here? What am I doing here? They have existential questions at the age of 5. I know I was writing my first book at 7 or 8. So I do think there's a creative personality. And I think there is Otto Rank, who was a compatriot of Freud and Adler and Jung, lesser known figure, but important in that he understood artists. And he coined the phrase artist manqué, that is, the would-be artist who flees the responsibilities of freedom. So I think that there's a creative personality that gets manifested in our creative performing artist. And then there's a creative personality that never manages to manifest itself. And that person has a lifelong disappointment, falling short of using their potential. That's a very large number of people, I think, who could have been creatives, but who chose at the age of 18 or 19 or 20 to do the careful thing, do the safe thing, become that accountant or lawyer or what have you.
Yes.
So I think that there are two big groups. There are the creative performing artists, of whom there are tens of millions worldwide, and then these artist manqués, these almost artists, these would-be artists, who I think have suffered their whole lives and have suffered from a kind of background coloration of the blues by virtue of the fact that they're doing ordinary work rather than meaningful work.
So you've answered a bit of my first question about what's on your radar screen. And you said the first thing is to help and create these organizations for creative artists. And you point out how you've been involved with creativity for many decades. Yes.
Yes.
What else is on your radar screen as you approach 80 years of age? What else is taking your consciousness, is the kind of thing that you talk to your family, your friends, your colleagues about that sort of burns in you a bit?
Yeah, there are two simple to say paradigm shifts that I really want to try to sell to the universe. One is the paradigm shift from the idea that life has a singular purpose, the purpose of life, that idea, to what I think is the better and truer idea that life has multiple purposes of our choosing. A very simple idea, but so many people spend a substantial portion of their life chasing that idea of the purpose of life, never find it because it isn't out there, and don't realize that they need to stay put, identify for themselves what's important to them, and then live their life according to what's important to them. Sounds simple, but so many people have never heard this idea of life purposes versus life purpose. So that's one. And then related to that is my view of meaning not being something to seek, but something to make, or rather to coax into existence, because we can't really force life to mean, but we can try to have the kinds of experiences that are felt as meaningful. So to say this all simply, people spend a lot of time trying to notice their mood and noticing that they're in a bad mood because life is not feeling meaningful to them at this moment. As soon as they get the idea that meaning is a feeling, then they understand it naturally must come and go. All feelings come and go. Suddenly, that meaning left for the week or the month doesn't become so dreadful. Meaning left, it'll come back on Tuesday. If I do X, Y, and Z, I can coax the experience of meaning back into my life. So again, as simple as that sounds, most people think that meaning is out there somewhere. It's like a lost purse or a lost hat, something to find, as opposed to something that's like any other feeling, a feeling that comes and goes. It's a special feeling in the sense that we really don't feel good if we're not feeling it. If life is not feeling meaningful, we really don't feel good. So it's special in that sense. It's more important. But as soon as you get the idea that meaning is just a psychological experience, a feeling, then certain ideas naturally follow, like it's going to come back. We can look to our past as to what really felt meaningful and repeat those things. It might be something as simple as holding our child's hand crossing the street. Maybe that's what really feels meaningful. Well, then we know that. That's important knowledge. Rather than fancy knowledge about going to some guru's feet or going to some mountain, but everyday knowledge of what actually feels meaningful. We can build our repertoire of meaningful activities based on what has been felt as experienced as meaningful previously. So both of those simple ideas about life purposes versus life purpose and meaning as a feeling versus meaning as something out there are ideas that I want to sell. I sell them in a package of existential wellness coaching. That's one of the things that interests me right now, that phrase and that idea. I train existential wellness coaches. And of course, we do what that sounds like, namely trying to help people get in better relationship to meaning and purpose, and primarily re-experience mattering. All postmodern people have it in them enough to believe that they don't really matter. They just know they come and go. I think we all kind of know that. It's built into us now. And so we have to get over that. We have to get over, or rather, we have to deal with that reality, that existential reality that we come and go, and decide to matter while we're here. It's a standard existential idea, but again, it's one of those important ideas that need resaying. While we're here, we need to matter.
You know, as a lifelong card-carrying existentialist, I've always taken the position that there is no such thing as inherent meaning, but whatever we put meaning into is meaningful. And I always use the example of Winston Churchill building a rock wall in his backyard, because he was a great man who got meaning out of painting. He got meaning out of being a
Yep.
warrior. He got meaning out of being a novelist, out of being a historian. He had many careers. But amongst all of those, he also got meaning out of building a rock wall in his backyard. And to me, that was the epitome of creating meaning and showing us that you can create meaning out of anything.
Yes. And I would just piggyback on that and say, I think there are different kinds of meaning in the following sense. I think there's value-based meaning, that is meaning that arises because we're actually living our values. And then there are other kinds of meanings. And the example that pops to mind for me is Eisenhower in the days before D-Day. We don't care what mood he was in. We don't care if he was anxious. We don't care if he was depressed. We need him to get the job done. We need him to get it right. And we don't see our own life as a series of D-Days. We don't elevate our activities to that exalted place. But in a way, that is the way we need to live, as if it's a series of D-Days, where we're putting all of our effort into whatever we decide matters to us. So I think this kind of inadvertent meaning, something just accidentally feels meaningful, the color of the sky or something. But then there's value-based meaning that I think is, so to speak, the highest meaning. And that's the meaning I think we want to, the meaning making we want to aspire to, that value-based meaning making.
Eric, don't we create our own moods? Aren't our moods ours to create? Don't we have it within us to decide at any given moment what our mood is going to be and embrace that mood rather than act as if the mood comes from somewhere else?
I have a yes and a no to that. Yes, substantially, that's true. If, let's say, some terrible occurrence happens and we can't do anything but grieve, I don't think we're in charge of that mood. I don't think we can get rid of that mood by virtue of good cognitions or what have you. What we can do, and I sell this idea to clients all the time, is the idea of sooner rather than later. That is the simple idea of, if a mood strikes us, maybe we can't instantly get rid of it, but we can say to ourselves, I would like to get out of this mood as soon as possible. Rather than indulging it, rather than spending the next 3 months in it, maybe I can get over it in a day rather than a month. So I
But
think we have
why not get over it in a minute, in 5 minutes? Why linger on in a mood that is other than the mood that we'd like to be in?
I don't really disagree. I think that if we're flooded with an emotion, something big happens. Let me use a terrible example. Our child is run over. I don't think we can get over that in a minute. And I don't think we even want to try to talk ourselves into some other mood in that
Well,
minute.
but there's a difference between experiencing grief
Yes.
and being in a negative mood. You can experience the grief and still be in an excellent mood at the very same time out of the appreciation that you're still able to experience the grief itself, which in
I
and of
don't disagree. I don't
right?
disagree. I
But I'll give
agree.
you an example from
I
my own
agree.
life. I was struck head on by a Winnebago recreational vehicle. I don't know if you know this story.
No.
Then he hit me head on and ran over me and crushed my legs. And so I was there on the highway, crushed, going into shock. And I decided on my own mood and what kind of course of action that I would take. And I took the course of action to stabilize myself by doing what you and I both know is conscious breathing. So I stabilized myself with conscious breathing so that the oxygen supply was steady and I didn't go into shock and I was able to call for a helicopter and get help. Then, when I was in the emergency room and they stripped off my clothes after I was helicoptered in, the doctor said he was going to amputate my legs. I maintained the mood that I wanted to have, not a fearful mood or a rejecting mood or a pessimistic mood. I maintained a mood that I felt that I needed in order to do the job, not the same as Eisenhower by any means, but this was my
Good job.
D-Day. This
Yep.
was my D-Day.
Yep.
And so I maintained my breathing and my equilibrium. And I said to the doctor, I don't think we're going to amputate my legs the way you want to. I think you're going to do an angiogram and see how much damage is done first. I won't go into all the details of what I did, but I did save my legs, and I'm here today with a pair of legs.
It's a great story, and it makes me want to agree with you. I don't know how many people can pull it off, but people can do what you're saying, just as you did. I'll give you a similar example.
Yes.
Our older daughter was pregnant with twins, and when she was delivering them, one came out vaginally, but the other one seemed not to want to come out. And the doctor said, we must do a cesarean. And our daughter said, absolutely not, that this baby's coming out and just give it a little more time. This is all going to work out. And it's, as you can imagine, it's not that easy to say anything to your doctor at that moment, except do it. You're the expert. So this was a similar decisiveness, if that's the right word, a similar decision to be in a certain place internally in a dramatic moment. So I agree with you that it's possible. Feels very high bar, feels very unusual that a human being could pull that off. But it is, as your example proves, and my daughter example proves, it's available. It'd be nice to teach it.
Well, I'm trying to teach it, Eric, because I'm
Mhm.
going to give you another example. As we're sitting here right now, I'm in life-threatening tachycardia and afibrillation. I took an ECG minutes before our interview, and I'm in AFib, and I'm in tachycardia, and I could throw a clot at any second right now and go right over right during this interview. And I had an option. Do I want to go to the emergency room and get cardioverted and deal with the AFib, or do I want to continue with my interview with Eric Maisel? And I decided that it would be a lot more fun and a lot more satisfying to do the interview. So I'm here right now. I'm not letting that threat, that
Yeah,
sword of Damocles that's lingering over the back of my neck, harsh my mellow. You can feel how I am in the interview.
understood.
And so that leads me to believe that if I can do this, a mere mortal, we can all do this. We can all decide on how we're going to feel because our feelings, more than anything in the world, are ours. They're not anybody else's. Our feelings are what we have agency over. Are they not?
I entirely agree. I mean, you're announcing a Stoic ideal, what Epicurus might say, or Epictetus, or any good Stoic might say. I really don't want to disagree. It's the can in that sentence that people can do this. It's the can that
Yes.
stops me because people are. Let me say this one way. It's not clear that our mind, brain, consciousness, however to describe it, is up for this particular moment in human history. Here we are with this particular brain in this particular moment in human history. And where most people are bombarded by text messages and worries and not able to sleep. We have our insomnia epidemic, etc. We can name all the travails of the world. In that context, what can we expect of them? What can we expect them to pull off? It's really, I guess I want to be generous and give them the opportunity to move their mood over time rather than in the instant way that you're describing. I love the way you're describing it. I just don't know what people can pull off.
Yes, yes. It's interesting that you mentioned the Stoics because every day I read a little, and of Seneca. I was reading Seneca earlier today, and we
Little
all
Marcus Aurelius.
yes, of course, and Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca's favorite, his famous for the way that he died because he died by self-suicide that he was ordered by Nero, but he did it and had a conversation as he was going out, which he is famous for, which is the ultimate of setting his own attitude.
Exactly. And that's why Stoicism is so popular right at this moment. People understand that it's funny that it precedes existentialism, but it's in a way a next step in existentialism. I'm sure you remember Sartre at a certain point in his writing career wrote an essay about his views on existentialism and asked the question, where should it go next? And then rather than following up on it himself, he started doing a biography of Balzac or Flaubert or something. He actually acted in bad faith after announcing what existentialism's project should be. We're still looking for the next steps in existential thought, and it's not surprising that it might go all the way back to Stoicism as one of the places to go forward by
Yeah,
going backward. It makes perfect sense. If I may just to, go
please.
ahead.
No, please.
I was going to hop off to the side because we're
Yes,
talking about things that mainstream helping doesn't want to talk about, as you know. Mainstream helping in the form of psychiatry and the mental disorder paradigm is not interested in the matters that we're chatting about, even though they're the most important matters that face human beings. That's why you ask what interests me or how I spend my time.
yes,
I've created, and I'm the lead editor for the Ethics International Press Critical Psychology and Critical Psychiatry series of books where we poke at the elephant that is psychiatry and try to present alternatives to the medical model. First of all, try to deconstruct it so people understand that symptom pictures are not the same as real diagnoses. That to say that these 7 things go together doesn't mean you know why something is causing it. That it's a certain kind of labeling and naming game that's really inappropriate and illegitimate, really. But that's all to the side of it is pretty much the only game in town. And unfortunately, clients/patients want the label. I'm ADHD, that explains something. Or I'm bipolar, that explains something. Or I'm oppositional and defiant, something that explains something. So there's real collusion between the helping profession of psychiatry and everybody else who uses the DSM and the ICD, all of those people on the one side, and then clients/patients who want the label on the other side. So it's hard to tease that apart and help people demand of the healthcare system that they get something more than a label and a chemical fix.
yes. More than a label and a chemical fix. Indeed. So, what else do you deal with on your radar screen?
Well, I still see individual
You
clients.
do.
Uh, I do.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Do you love it?
I do love it. I'm finding that because human beings are having a harder time getting things done that they want to get done, clients are less wanting to schedule sessions because they're embarrassed to say how little they're getting done. Because if this were therapy, we could just talk about things. But since this is coaching, I actually want them to get things done. And since they're not getting things done, the client numbers are
Yeah.
smaller by virtue, for that sad reason that they're just not getting the things done. They don't want to come on the screen and tell me I didn't pull it off. So I do love the coaching, but that's a smaller portion of my day for this reason, that folks are just embarrassed to not be getting things done and overwhelmed.
Eric, how many hours a day do you spend writing? What is your schedule?
I start my day at 5:30. I go directly, and I sell this to clients too, this idea. I go directly to my writing first thing,
At 5:30 in the
5:30 in the morning, and I have three reasons that I do that, or rather, these are the reasons I tell clients that I do it, or they should do it. The first is the obvious one. If you showed up every morning and wrote, you'd get a lot of writing done. That goes without saying. The second is that if you have the experience of making some meaning first thing, the rest of the day can be half meaningless and you're less likely to get depressed. It's like building of meaning capital for the day.
You're laying a foundation
You're laying a
of
foundation.
meaning. You've gotten something done. And if you were to
You
go to
feel
your
better about yourself. You feel less disappointed in yourself and the day looks different. That's the second. The third is just as important. And people don't understand this one. And everybody knows we dream. I don't have to tell people they dream. We've been studying dreams since 1899, Freud's interpretation of dreams. We've been on the hobby horse of dreams for a long time. What people don't understand is they also think while they sleep in different times of the night. There's dreaming, one thing, thinking, another thing. If you wake a person up when they're thinking, a poet will be writing poetry, a mathematician will be doing math puzzles, they'll be thinking. Well, if you go to bed with what I call a sleep thinking prompt, that is a wonder of a certain sort. I wonder what Mary would like to say to John in chapter 3 of my novel, or something. Your brain will work on it. Mary and John will have a conversation while you're sleeping, a good conversation. They'll say smart things. You'll have your chapter done, but you only get that information if you turn to your novel first thing in the morning. The second you turn to the new day, you lose your sleep thinking. So people are losing an hour and a half of free creative time by not turning to their work first thing. All they have to do is show up to their novel or their painting or their symphony or whatever, and they're going to have free information from their night thinking. It's a big deal loss that, and people will tell me all the things they will tell me. I'm not an early bird. I have to do my yoga first. I have to do my exercise first. I have to journal first. I have to, etc. And my standard answer is move all that stuff to some other time of the day, because your sleep thinking is only available to you for about the first minute. And by the way, you don't have to really wake up. It's better if you're still in that dreamy state. That's the best place to get to your work. You don't have to have your 7 cups of coffee and wake up. It's exactly the opposite. Just go in a dreamy way to your work and information will be available.
5:30, you're sitting down and you're writing. And how long do you stay there writing?
In
Roughly.
my model, I'm a chunk person. That is, I work as long as I need to work to get a chunk done. And a
Okay.
chunk for me is a finished 1,000-word piece, give or take, give or take. It might be an 800-word piece, it might be a 1,500-word piece, but I'm trying to get a whole piece done every day, a coherent beginning, middle, and end piece done every day. It might be 2 hours, could be an hour, could be longer. Depends on whether the material's available, whether it's right there or not.
Okay, so more or less 2 hours,
More or
5:30 to
less 2 hours.
7:30. And then where do
And I
you
do
go
business. I run my empire, do business, answer emails, do all of that.
at
I see
7:30?
at 7:30. I see clients at 9, 10, 11, and noon. That's my schedule for clients. So at 1 p.m., I'm pretty much done for my day is sort of like 5:30 to 1. And I kind of need lunch and a nap. I'm now a nap person. I'm at that age where I get to have a nap.
And then what do you most likely do in the afternoon after 2 o'clock after your nap?
Well, I cook for my wife and me. I'm the cook, and we start watching shows we like by probably 4. So I take my nap. I return to do emails or whatever, or something interesting for an hour or two, and then by 4 we sit down to that old person's early dinner, and then we watch for a couple of hours whatever we're watching, and then I'll go back to the computer just to make sure the world's still there, or if I care about that.
Now, what about the place of exercise in your life? Do you have a place for exercise?
Excuse me. What does that word mean? I'm not sure I've heard it before. No,
It's a
that's a
thing where you
joke.
it's sort of a thing where you move your body in different ways and mobilize and make it
No,
jump
I'd
around.
I have to go to AI and look that up. I don't think I know what that means. No.
And by the way, I want you to know that I have completely done away with this word artificial intelligence, and I want you to help me with this, Eric.
Okay.
We want to change it to accumulated intelligence because
I like it.
what we have is an accumulation of a great deal of intelligence, and there's nothing artificial about it
I
whatsoever.
agree, 100%.
So
I'm in
please,
that camp of finding it very interesting and useful. Just to give you the simplest example, I'm under contract for a book with a publisher who demands abstracts for each chapter. And as writers of professional books know, there's almost nothing more tedious than creating the abstract of the chapter. It's like creating the summary of a novel. It sounds so boring,
right,
but I can just drop the chapter into chat and say, give me an abstract, and it'll give
yes,
me an abstract. Thank God.
right.
I don't need to do that.
But you're going to join me now in calling it accumulated
I'm going
intelligence.
to join you. I'm going to
Thank
join you.
No, artificial has a bad word. It's like phony. It's not real. And there's nothing phony about this
No,
intelligence.
it's an
It's
interesting
our,
moment.
and what I think is brilliant about the accumulated intelligence is it's really our adventure in immortality because the accumulation is the accumulation of everything that we have gathered up to the present moment. And we have it in one place on a chip. And that is the sum total of who we are at this
Yep.
time in history.
And just as to create a fun moment for myself, I'll sometimes ask chat for some information where I know that if it provides citations, I'll be one of the citations. So it's funny I enjoy having me come up as I'm working.
So I want to know what place the Ukraine has in this organization that you're putting together with regard to the performing artists. I want to know if we can make a special place for the Ukrainian artists at this time in history because they're suffering in a very special way that artists around the world are not suffering. They're suffering in their own ways. And do you have
I completely hear you. I don't have an answer because we don't understand the organization well enough yet to answer that question properly. But we entirely want it to be political in the sense in which you just spoke to Ukrainian artists. I'm reaching out to, well, let me say this one way. One of the features of the organization is that it will have unpaid advisors from all over the world helping us understand what's going on in their regions or with their métiers or their disciplines. So we're trying to be as inclusive and as broad as we can possibly be and understand that there are special needs, special populations who get extra space or privileged space in whatever we're doing. The short answer is it's meant to be a political organization in the sense in which you're talking about the Ukraine or Palestinians, or we could
Yes.
name a lot of groups who who are struggling is just too weak a word to say it, who are suffering.
Well, I bring up the Ukraine for several reasons, Eric, not the least of which is it turns out that I am Ukrainian by ancestry. I always thought I was Russian, but it turns out that the part of that area that I was from is really in the Ukraine.
I
My
have the
dad,
same story. I have the same story.
really, my father was born in Odessa, which is
Yep,
Ukraine, even though it's owned by Russia, supposedly. But the Ukraine has a very special place in history because it's the breadbasket of Europe. And that's why Putin and that's why Hitler fought over it because they want
sure.
the food, just like we have the food in the Midwest of the United States. The Ukraine is the breadbasket. And so, because of that ancestry, and I was in the Ukraine recently, I went there with Rick Doblin of Maps, and we did some training over there. And I was deeply moved by what's going on. And are you familiar with Timothy Snyder's work on tyranny?
Not offhand. It doesn't ring a
Yes.
bell.
I really want to introduce you to Timothy Snyder. I think you two have a lot to say to each other. He's also written many books. He's a historian. And the one that I want to introduce you to first is called On Tyranny. It's a little book, and you can, read it in a
He's
half.
been on MSNBC frequently. Is that
Yes, he
correct?
has.
Yes.
That's correct.
I can picture him and his
Yes.
and
I really hope you'll have a hard look at him, Eric, and maybe connect in terms of your organization, because he's involved in Ukraine in
yep.
creating organizations there.
That what you just said brings to mind another. You asked me what's important to me, what I'm passionate about. Authoritarians in the family. Of course, we know about fascism in the world, but I've been interested in authoritarians in the family for some time. It harkens back to my growing up in Brooklyn. I had no dad, which I loved. I loved not having somebody, to use Sartre's word, lay full length on me. I enjoyed the freedom of having no dad. And I pitied my friends who, when their dads would come home at 5 or 6 or 7, their worlds, their days changed around that tyrannical dinner table thing that so many kids have to experience. So even way back then as a kid, I thought that there was lots of tyranny in households, authoritarianism in households.
Yes.
Then I familiarized myself with Adorno's work and the authoritarian personality work,
Yeah.
the work done at UC Berkeley in the 50s, which was repressed because it was pointing out things that mainstream world didn't want to know. And so I've done a book called Parents Who Bully. I've had an authoritarian wound questionnaire out there in cyberspace for many years. People encounter it and tell me their story about what it's been like living with an authoritarian in their household. And there are no real numbers, but people who operate in this lane claim that maybe a quarter of the population is authoritarian. I don't know where these numbers come from really, but let's make believe that it's a real number. Well, if that's a real number, then virtually everyone is going to be encountering an authoritarian in their either near family or extended family, and they're going to have to figure out how to deal with that person. And what respondents, just to give a headline here, what respondents almost to the person tell me is the only way they can really deal with the authoritarian and their family is to get the hell out of there. That it's not really possible to change that person. It's not really possible to protect themselves or insulate themselves or be cleverer than the authoritarian or figure out what the authoritarian is going to do next. That the only thing to do is to get out. And then the psychological concomitant of that is to not feel guilty about not maintaining contact with mom or dad or brother or sister, to be free of the guilt that comes with cutting off somebody who's dangerous to you. So that's one of those areas that fascinates me and I think is important.
I think it's tremendously important, and I think it's so built into almost our DNA because of the difference of the sexes. I think that because of the dominance of males going back to the caves, when a man could grab a woman by the hair and get what he wanted because of his physical abilities that was so far beyond the females, that same sense of being able to dominate has come down through all of history. And I think males are still basically dominating and dominating females and suppressing them.
Absolutely. And this will seem a little out of left field or weird, but in that moment when Kamala Harris became the candidate, I was all for her, but I thought it was a mistake for the Democratic Party to not run a tall white man just for these archaic reasons, these archetypal reasons, not to say that's a better person, God knows.
But I'm with you as 100% as a colleague. A tall white man was the way to go.
I wanted it to be Gavin Newsom. I don't know if he came with too much baggage, but I just wanted someone like that.
Yes, of course. Of course.
At any rate, I got on the bandwagon, contributed, did this, did that, but I really wished it was a different person for archaic reasons.
So we're going to take a short break now. And during the break, I'm going to ask you to be thinking about, if we were to end right now rather than take a break, if we were to end and you would then close your computer and you would have a couple of thoughts such as, I wish I would have brought up, or I wish I would have mentioned. So what's going to happen is after the break, I'm going to come back and I'm going to give you an opportunity to say what it is you wish you would have said had we ended. Okay? So you think about that while I do a little commercial. And here it is. I want to remind you all that we've been broadcasting Mind, Body, Health, and Politics for the past 20 years. We give platforms to people that we want their voices to be heard. We want you to be hearing what they say and thinking about what they have to say. And we want it so much that all the archives for the 20 years are open source. You don't have to send in money, box tops, your name, or your serial number. You just go to the archive and you can listen to your heart's content to some of the greatest thinkers on the planet. And every week we come out with a new one. So I want you to join in. I also want you to take a look at my latest book. Take a look at it. Master Your Mind. It deals with some of the things that Eric and I have been talking about today, including how to set your attitude. And you heard me talk about a little bit today about how I set my attitude, and I'm still maintaining my attitude, and the AFib hasn't taken me out. I also want you to go to Google and type in Eric Maisel, Ericmaisel. Eric is a giant in the field, and you want to at least familiarize yourself with some of his greatest works. Now back to Eric. What did you think of that you might have want to share with us before we end?
What I wanted to share was an idea that it's simple and useful. Kind of everybody understands cognitive behavioral therapy enough to know that they should be thinking thoughts that serve them, and thoughts can increase suffering. They understand all of that to some extent. What I would hope they could understand is that they might want to change the source of those thoughts rather than arm wrestling each thought to the ground, to go right to the source. And I've conceptualized the source as the room that is your mind, not a particularly clever picture, but something to grab onto, the room that is your mind, and the idea of redesigning and redecorating that room. That is to use the power of visualization, which is a useful power, to envision the room that is one's mind differently. For instance, installing windows so that a breeze blows through. It's just a metaphor for getting rid of stuffy thoughts, but again, you can visualize that and picture a breeze blowing through and getting more comfortable. Maybe visualizing getting rid of the bed of nails that a lot of people's minds are the equivalent of, and switching it out for an easy chair. Or imagining that when you flip on the light, it doubles as a calmness switch and you get calmer the instant you enter your mind, or etc. That is, and I have a book called Redesign Your Mind, which has maybe 75 or 100 of these guided visualizations, the idea of which is to help you actually change that landscape so that you don't have to fight with thoughts anymore. Your mind just generates the thoughts that serve you. So there's that idea that I think could prove valuable to folks, the idea of redesigning and redecorating your mind as an additional tool beyond disputing each thought as it arises. Apart from that, I think I would return, I've said it already, but I would return to the theme of doing the next right thing as a kind of life purpose statement that encapsulates all of one's life purposes. As I said earlier, we have multiple life purposes from my point of view. Many things are important to us: service, activism, family, creativity. We could name the list. But even though there are multiple life purposes, I think we can still capture their essence in a phrase. For me, it's do the next right thing. I invite people to dream up their life purpose statement because it's anchoring. In this world that keeps throwing us one side and another, we need these, whatever our anchoring mechanisms are, we need them. And they have to be portable. It's lovely if you have an hour meditation practice in the morning, but that may not serve you at 3 p.m. when the news comes on or something. So we need something that works, that's portable, that works in the moment. And I think a life purpose phrase, statement works. And let me just piggyback one other idea. A life purpose icon is a lovely idea. Just the way a cross or a Star of David or these things work for people who believe in these things, rainbow flag, all the different icons of different groups, individuals don't typically create their own life purpose icon. They don't think to do it. But when I mention it to people, they then kind of instantly decide what it will be for them, like an oak tree or a lighthouse or a lightning bolt or whatever it is. Something comes up for them that somehow represents how they want to be in life, how they want to represent themselves in life. And then they can turn it into their screensaver or make it into a necklace or what have you. But the main point I'm trying to make here is we need different ways of reminding ourselves to attend to our life purposes, or else we'll just be doing our to-do list all day long, every day, another to-do list, and not getting to the things that we actually know are important.
Beautifully said. Take the time to look within and see what your life purpose is. Eric, thank you so much for being with us today on Mind, Body, Health, and Politics. I so much enjoyed the interview. I look forward to our next one. I'm sure we'll be doing them from time to time. Gentle listeners, thank you all for being with us today with this interview with Dr. Eric Maisel. Until next time, this is Dr. Richard Lewis Miller reminding you that good health is worth fighting for, and it's essential for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.